How's it going, everyone? For a follow-up installment of the Mr. Old Dude wrenching minutes, I guess you call this. The main reason why I'm doing this job here, working on this Ford Ranger, is simply because on the far side it blew out one of the axle seals, and I had to replace that. This is kind of a follow-up on the other side, just to do them both since I'm going to be doing them, with a couple lessons I learned. Particularly on the removal of the seal itself. It's kind of right here and on this edge. This one seems to be okay, a little dirty but holding up. But basically some of the techniques I've seen, some people have used a pry bar to get the seal out. Others have used kind of a seal puller to get that out. There, let me go. Let me walk around here and grab that son of a bitch. Basically, I bought a seal puller from Harbor Freight, and I should have known when it said, when all the reviews were 1 star, and it was like, oh, save your money, waste of $8. And I'm like, alright, well, they're probably right, I'll try it out. If you see here, this side here closest is promptly bent the first time I used it, and so I flipped it around and started pulling down, and then this little fucking piece popped. Yeah, maybe you could tell the Chinese people or the Harbor Freight designers, whoever the hell makes these things, that you need a little more of an edge margin than that, because that stress concentration was just ridiculous and made it fail in a really spectacularly pissing off way. So this thing is pretty much garbage. If you're going to try it this way, I guess you want to throw $8 away. Maybe I'll even try taking it back. But ultimately what I wound up doing was, since this was a Ford seal, originals of the truck of course, it had a lip on it, and I got, well, they call it either the screwdriver method or, I guess in my case, the chisel method. Once I take off the axle shaft, which I'll go around to the back, pull that C-clip. There are other videos that'll kind of show you how exactly that's done. I'll make some links here if it's important, and then slide the shaft out, and then we'll get working on the bearing. Okay, what I've done is I pulled out the pin between the spider gears, just the pin, I don't know if there's a technical name for it, and then remove the C-clip, so this thing should be coming free, and we'll just slide her right out. And there we go. She's a little dirty, a little greasy, but generally in really good shape. I guess this truck is only 10 years old, and that probably really hasn't had too hard of a life. But so right here's the seal, and there's basically the aftermarket part that I've purchased. I think it's a national seal. I'm sure Timken, if you can get those, are probably going to be similar. The ones from Ford have a little lip on them, and that basically prevents you from seating them too deep. The first one they gave me, I guess the Ford or the Ranger Edge. This one has the 8.8 inch differential versus the 7.5, and there's any number of different seals. The first two they gave me were wrong. The second one, or well, the third one now that I went back and got this morning, it's the proper size, proper diameter, but however it doesn't have this lip on it. I guess the guy at the auto parts store, I assume he must have done mechanic work for a while. I was like, yeah, that's the way Ford does it. Maybe some others, I guess that lip is maybe a patented part of or a patented feature, but you really don't need it. You basically, well, it gave me something to pull from, and that's what I'm going to do again. But it gives you something to pull from, and an extra sealing location if you're worried about it. But once you seat the new one, then you simply use you simply use a block of wood, which in the video I found that technique. I'll also link it, but we're also going to be doing it'll be the same. So basically I'm just trying to get in here to get in between that lip and the flange to separate it. I think probably that's the reason why I wasn't able to just pry it out as others have done. So once I can get it started right. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll take a little break here, and then once I get it started I'll come back. Okay, so what I've done is I've gotten a screwdriver in there just to kind of get that edge started, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take probably take the chisel or the screwdriver, whichever happens to be working best, and just kind of propagate this crack all around, and that should help me loosen this up to get it free. Okay, and so what's starting to happen here is what I really want to see, which is good. I've chiseled about a quarter of the way, and what's started to happen now is this is lifting out, and this this crack, I guess you could call it a crack, this seam is starting to come open, which is what I really want, because I don't want to be dicking with this thing for a couple hours like I was stupidly yesterday. So we'll just continue. So as you might have been able to just see right there, it started to move a bit forward, which is good. That's what I want. Nope. Still walking it forward. I think in a little bit I may be able to grab the pry bar and get inside there and walk it the rest of the way out. So you can see she's gradually going, and I think most of that reason why this one was so hard versus some of the other videos I've seen is because I guess the factory unit also has an additional seal on here. From what I've read, you don't really necessarily need that, just as long as you have a good film of grease to help it take that seal when you're tapping it in, the new one. But I'm sure it was at least a bit of preventative application there, just maybe. But I mean, honestly, these things really aren't under a lot of pressure, so just as long as you can keep oozing oil from just oozing by your seal, it's really not a big deal. I have heard that if the vent on your differential is plugged, that can be one reason for you to blow out the seals in your axles. But I haven't gotten that far. I haven't checked that yet. Maybe. We'll see. Oh yeah! And there she was. Oh man, that was so much easier than last time. The other one I just mangled it with a pry bar and hammering it and trying to wedge it. So I guess there's something to be said about actually using the proper technique. So I think what I'll do now is I'll inspect this bearing. It feels generally pretty good. No unusual amount of noise. There's no score marks on it. No amount of play. They say that, well, you know, if you're digging in here and you plan to keep the truck for a while or whatever it is you're working on, it might not be a bad idea to replace the bearings. I think on this they're about $30 a piece. And then pulling them out's not too hard if you have the proper tool. They have it's a bearing puller that kind of fits in like this, and then you hit it with a slide hammer and it comes right out. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean up this edge and then lube it up and then tap the bearing back in. Okay, I've got this surface all cleaned up, and since I used a little bit of brake cleaner on it, just get it clean and wiped it down, I'm going to apply a little bit of axle grease onto these bearings, just so once everything is back together and I put the fluid back in the differential, there'll be enough lubrication in there, so once things really start spinning around and really get moving, it'll have enough lubrication so that that grease actually gets on there and then takes the place of it. And then we'll just kind of put we'll dab more. Let's put a thin film, and maybe there's a little much. It should be okay. Thin film around the inside of that surface. Light. Get it on the seal itself. So it has two sides. Obviously this side goes in. And then you just kind of set it in there the way that it wants to go. And let me grab my mallet. Where I got my mallet? My block of wood. Tap her in. Just sitting flush, okay. So you can see she's going in pretty straight, and as the further you go, as long as you're not too forceful with it, then it'll go in straight. A few more wax, it should be flush. A little more. Kind of hard to tell, but I think we are pretty darn good. And that's it. That's all it really takes. Not too bad once you have a good technique. Thanks a lot. Good luck.